Welcome to Vitals and Values, the podcast where we talk about science over hype and values over virality. I am Dr. Lara Baatenburg, owner of Concierge Medicine of West Michigan.
And I'm David Roden, a.k.a. Fit D-Rock, a.k.a. Transformational Coach, a.k.a. Stud Muffin.
And this is our first real episode.
Come on.
We made it.
And we're going, this is biased because it's going straight to me, which is GLP-1s, Ozempic, this whole world.
I feel like this had to be the first podcast that we talked about, or thing we talked about on podcast. So we were talking about, is Ozempic a miracle or a crutch? So my first beef with this title even is the word Ozempic. And you know why.
Why is that?
So Ozempic is not a weight loss med.
Technically, no.
It's just become this like Kleenex term for weight loss meds.
Correct.
So we're going to get into that here on Vitals Check. So we're going to talk about what are we talking about here? So we're talking about weight loss medications, which there really are, of the newer weight loss medications on the market right now, there are two. We have semaglutide and we have tirzepatide. Now, the reason, I don't know why people keep saying Ozempic, because Ozempic is semaglutide, but you cannot get it for weight loss because it is only a diabetes medication. So people, stop saying Ozempic. You're not going to get it for weight loss. If you want a weight loss medication, ask for Wegovy or Zepbound, which is tirzepatide. Did that clear it up?
Well, it's important because why is that?
Why is what?
Why do you have to say the different names?
Because you will not get it covered by your insurance if you use the wrong one.
And so it's super important, people, as we develop this out, like, it's weird because it's the same drug.
Yes.
But for insurance purposes, since it was originally clinically proven for diabetes management and then secondary proven for weight loss,
yes.
For the sake of insurance, they had to
So there are two different
brands.
So we got semaglutide, which we have Ozempic for diabetes, Wegovy for weight loss, and we have tirzepatide. We have Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for weight loss.
Noted. Now, why is it? Like, break this all down. Vitals check and the science. Why is this everyone losing their friggin' minds over this drug? What does the data say?
Just interesting. When I was in residency, which was less than 10 years ago, these medications did not exist. I had people in residency ask me for weight loss meds all the time. And though there were a few out there that I could prescribe, they weren't that good. And it just was like, it was a frustrating conversation on both sides because I couldn't really help someone from a medication standpoint with weight loss. And so these newer medications that have come out over the last, 5 to 10 years. So yeah, they were around for diabetes, and then they saw this additional benefit for weight loss. And so they started marketing it or they created it for weight loss. And now that's a huge market. And so these medications, they work on specific hormones that are called incretins. I don't know that a lot of people actually talk about this word, but incretins, have you heard it? You haven't? Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I'm usually a science guy. I just got out-scienced.
So incretins are these hormones that are released by the gut in response to food that you eat. And it's mainly carbs and fats that these hormones are secreted in response to. And so then that's where GLP-1 is an incretin, and everyone often will talk about these medications with that name too, a GLP-1, because these medications work on the receptors that those hormones also work.
Gotcha.
And so these medications are secreted in response to food, and they work in the body in a couple different ways to impact our weight. And so they work to stimulate insulin secretion by our pancreas, and so that helps us with our blood sugar control, and that's kind of where the diabetes effect has been utilized. And then there is they also work on your gut and helping with delayed gastric emptying, and so that helps people feel full longer, and so they are less hungry, and so they eat less, presumably. And then they also work somehow in our brain, and they help decrease this like food noise that you hear people talking about. And so then I've had patients that come in and they're like, I don't think about food the same way. I used to think about food all the time. And now I go throughout my day and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 2:00 and I forgot to eat lunch. And that had never happened to them in the past. And so through those three main mechanisms, people are seeing significant weight loss from these medications, which the old medications that didn't work that great weren't really providing a lot of weight loss. But with these medications, so we're seeing in in semaglutide, about up to 15% weight loss reduction. And then in the tirzepatide, it's shown a little bit greater, which about 20%, give or take.
And so put in perspective, what does that look like? What is 20% weight loss in?
So if someone's 200 pounds, then they can expect up to 40-pound weight loss, 20%. So, and I think people do have to realize that, because I think I've had patients that come in and they're like, well, I was losing weight and I'm not losing weight anymore. And I'm like, well, you've lost 15% of your body weight that you started with. You're not going to probably see a significant change from the medication at this point. It can still help with like the food noise and making people feel full longer, but you're not going to see as much of a dramatic weight loss after that just from the medication.
Gotcha.
Make sense? Let's see, what else was there? The other thing. So if people care, semaglutide also has shown in studies to be helpful to prevent cardiovascular disease in people that already have cardiovascular disease. If you don't have cardiovascular disease, that we don't have the data yet on that, but for people that have it, it's helping with preventing problems related to their cardiovascular disease, which is really cool. So that's another good use of semaglutide, though tirzepatide does not have that research yet.
Gotcha.
As our drug reps really want us to tell people. The Wegovy rep is like, make sure you let people know about this, because tirzepatide does not have it.
It's like marketing.
Yep, it's good marketing.
How was your sandwich from having a pharmaceutical rep come in and tell you that? So I'm usually going to keep my mouth shut during Vitals check, because this is her world. She's the doctor. But I'm going to hit this. We're getting a little in the weeds, but I think it's super important because you just brought it up. People, when pharmaceutical reps come in to quote unquote market their product to doctors, they bring them sandwiches, basically, or some danishes.
We do get some muffins occasionally.
Muffins? So
and coffee.
So, okay, I'll just make sure it's clear, guys. She does not get money for prescribing medications.
This is important.
It's illegal. It is very illegal to make kickback money. And the only real influence pharmaceutical reps have on doctors is to get their time, they buy them food. Okay?
They buy us food. They teach us things. Slightly biased things, I get that, but it's like good, solid research they're providing us, and we meet really cool people, and it's a great way to provide good information to our patients about medications that are on the market and make our patients' lives easier, because we have learned the best way to order them in the chart and make sure your insurance covers it and get all the right documentation in there so that they can actually get it.
So, people, if someone on the internet is telling you that doctors are getting a bunch of kickback money and influenced by pharmaceuticals from the sake of pharmacy reps because of whatever, they get danishes. That's
no one has
the influence.
Paid me money to prescribe a medication, and they never will. It's not going to happen. So I have patients that would come to my office and be like, well, you're getting paid to prescribe that. No, I'm not. Most doctors are out there. They are trying to do the best for their patient, and that is why they're doing what they're doing. They're not there to make money on prescribing you anything.
But other people that tell you they do sell you supplements that they
That's
actually make margin on. Okay? That was a tangent. I'm sorry. I had to go there because you opened the door. Back to Vitals check.
I think, the only other thing I was going to add is, because people want to know, and I think it's important about side effects from the medications, is the biggest thing are GI side effects, because of the effects they have on our GI tract. So we hear a lot about abdominal pain, nausea, cramping, diarrhea, and that is dose dependent. So some people can make it up to the max dose of these medications and do fine, but some can only make it to, say, halfway up the titration, and they have symptoms that are too bothersome, so they just have to stop at whatever is the lowest dose that they can, or the highest dose that they can tolerate.
Gotcha. Now, question.
Yes.
Is there any studies that you have from a clinical standpoint that are concerning that maybe you talk about later?
Concerning for what?
For the drugs.
Loss. Oh, sorry.
Yep. I think it's super important we talk about this because people bring this up all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of talk about the concern that when people are losing weight with these medications, they're losing too much muscle, and then that's leading to frailty is the word I'm trying to come up with, and then like effects on their bones that's negative. And I think we have to realize that the research is still, we don't have like all the research yet, but some of the research did show, hey, is there some loss in lean mass or fat-free mass with these medications? And the current research out there showed that there probably isn't. It's just the effect of the speed of weight loss with these medications that people are seeing that, oh my gosh, my muscle mass is decreasing too. But that's not necessarily the effect of the medication. It's an effect of just weight loss in general. And the studies too, if you look at them, they're not very specific on their terminology. So they sometimes talk about fat-free mass or lean mass, but what are they actually talking about? Because those are different terms. And so I think we just need more studies on that. But I think, do you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Well, yeah, as we go on the next angle of it, because this is talked about, there are studies that show excessive muscle mass lost in total weight and it being muscle. Now, as we can kind of just pretty much transition it over, as we kind of go into values and focus, I think it's super important we talk about that kind of concept because you do have to be concerned about these medications in the sense that, from my point of view, looking at them, they actually just work too good. And there's a huge population that the food noise is gone. Mm-hmm. And it goes from one extreme to the other. They go from overeating consistently to just not eating.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Right. I don't want people to stop eating with the medications. Because we need people to eat. And that I feel like earlier on when I was like, these were really new, I was seeing that from my patients where like they'd be like, I didn't eat anything till 8 p.m. and they were super happy about it. And it's like, yay. And you like congratulate them. And then now you're like, gosh, that was really stupid. These people need to eat. And ideally, to prevent that muscle loss, if they're eating a healthy diet high in protein and if they can strength train, you're not going to see those negative effects in muscle loss the same way you would if they're avoiding eating and being sedentary. Because I think that's the thing that people get up in arms about these medications is like we're kind of what our title of this podcast is it cheating? And no, it's not cheating at all.
It's biology. People don't understand, if you're constantly feeling, I can tell you from experience, in the back of your head, if food is always on your mind, it's very difficult to control calories. It's still calories. That's all this is coming down to. But these are some of those mechanism points where by figuring out a way to feel fuller longer and not feel so hungry as often, you control calories better. And people who have never had weight problems, who've never experienced what food noise is like, have no semblance of what that. It's just constantly in the back of your head all the time. Food, hunger, food. And like, so if we have just discipline.
If we have a tool that can help people turn that off, why are we looking down at people for using that?
Yeah. And it's because again, the people that are naive thinking it's cheating, they don't have that problem. So they have no empathy or understanding of what it's like to have a chronic food noise thought in the back of your head, this hunger. And it's like, you don't have it, so you have no idea what it's like. Now, what happens when someone gets to turn that switch off? They're like, this is what this is like. Wait, you don't just eat breakfast and automatically thinking about lunch? Like, there are literally thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that constantly have this food noise. Some of it's self-inflicted. When we get into the next part, I think it's super important we talk about that. But like, it's essential to understand that there is such a discrepancy of hunger across 8 billion people.
Yeah, and I think I know we've talked about this before, but for people with other medical problems, such as diabetes or high blood pressure, which are incredibly common, and they're often very lifestyle-driven conditions, we give those people medication without a second thought. And no one looks down on a diabetic because they need a medication to help manage their blood sugar. We don't say, well, you didn't try hard enough in your nutrition, so you don't get a medication. Like, we don't do that. So why are we doing it with people with obesity who need help? And we can improve their health so much with these medications by helping them lose weight. Why are we stigmatizing that?
Yeah, and then with that kind of context in the same way, because going back to earlier with that, one of the concerns I've noticed from being on social media and people hitting me up about the medications and everything, and from a traditional medical world, like, again, these are new drugs. Doctors aren't perfect. They don't know these things. And how many patients did you have at your previous place?
So I had over 3,000 on my panel. Yeah.
And how many minutes was your average?
I don't know what mine was, but the average, I think, like across the board is like 7 minutes.
7 minutes. So you have this patient come in, you prescribe this medication. They've been overweight forever. And how many of these chronic diseases they're dealing with are just weight related. Mm-hmm. And you finally get a patient, like I'd deal with it from online, where someone would celebrate the fact they lost 50 pounds in 3 months, 2 months. And I'm like, all right. And then they go to their doctor and they're like, great job. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm going, the only way you did that is you didn't eat. And so from a doctor's point of view, they're just loving the fact that they're finally getting a patient to lose weight, mm-hmm. and they only have 7 minutes to kind of unpack it. And so they're just kind of like, high five, you're doing great, keep it up.
Yeah.
And they don't have enough time to develop off it going, hey, are you under eating? Mm-hmm. What are you actually eating? And so it's super important, if you're going to use these medications, it doesn't take away from calories. It doesn't take away from prioritizing protein. It doesn't take away from the importance of strength training and building a fitness mm-hmm. routine. But there is this, finally, I think doctors are starting to understand, but there was this weird period where, at least from my outside looking in, doctors just celebrated the weight loss because they finally got a patient to drop some weight. And they were like, they just didn't eat.
Right. And I agree with that, because I think doctors are just like, if you can actually get a patient to lose weight, it's like a miracle. So you're like, I'm not going to like tell them anything negative, because I want them to just like continue to lose weight. And like you said, in the system, people just don't have the time for it. And I hear patients, just people in general, talking about how my doctor never talks about diet and exercise. And I'm like, I bet you your doctor mentioned it in passing because that's all the time that they had for it, because the system is not set up for them to talk about it in a longer conversation. And so I think if people just know that, and I think everyone knows you have to eat well and to exercise for health. I think that's pretty well known. So I don't know what people are expecting their doctors to tell them in a 7-minute visit that is going to like shock them and change their minds. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
Now, in our practice, we spend a lot longer with our patients, so that's something we highly value. And we talk in detail about people's nutrition and exercise because we think it's so important for their health. But in a traditional system, for people listening, if you are in that, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, it's tough. And then so then you have to find some outside resources to help that process. So as we develop into the roundtable, we have a couple different conversations to unpack and talk about. And I think this is a super important one because from your lens, the ethics around utilizing these drugs, it's a really gray area. And I'm sure, especially in your practice now where there's a lot more personal relationship building, where's the line of prescription of these utilizing these drugs? Where's the ethics of it from, like, what are you struggling with currently of how you prescribe these? What's going on?
Yeah, so I think overall when I think about this as a topic, I think why does this have to be considered so different than any other medication? Like, why are we saying there is different ethics for Wegovy than for a blood pressure medication? Like, I don't understand why there seems to be this difference, because I think any good physician, you're going to keep a lot of ethical standards regardless of what you're prescribing. And so I don't understand why there's this, like, I don't know, like, it's like these medications are different than anything else. And I would say the thing that comes up the most to me, however, for people that are asking for these medications, because so many people ask for them, like, almost anybody that comes into my office wants to talk about weight loss medications. Even my older patient who has a BMI of 23 and wants to drop 15 pounds and is like, well, what about these weight loss meds? And so that, I think, is the hardest part for me, is talking to these people who, and it's not just her, it's like I have a lot of patients who have a BMI between 25 and 30. And for people that don't know, the medications are approved for people with a BMI over 30 or over 27 with certain medical conditions. But so many people that don't fit those categories want them. And so having that conversation can be very challenging. And it is a nuanced conversation.
Like, honestly, this is going to be tough. Like, but seriously,
Yeah.
where's your line of the ethics behind vanity use and medical health use? Like,
sure. And I think that's a very gray line. And I think it is person dependent. Like any good doctor, you have to see, I think this is where the relationship part of a doctor and a patient, that relationship is so important, because I think when you truly understand the patient, who they are, why they're talking about their weight, you can dive into what is this, like what is underlying why they feel like they need to lose the weight. And if you can really get into that understanding and talk to them about it, I think that helps guide the conversation better. But I know people will say, well, it's off label if you give it to someone who's got a BMI of 27 and wants to lose 10 pounds and, you're taking it away from those people who really need it. Well, I'm like, first of all, we use medications off label all the time. Like, I couldn't tell you the data, but they're like most medications I use on a daily basis are probably used off label in some sense. That's not a bad thing. Like, medications are used off label. So that in and of itself is not an ethical problem. And then when you are talking to someone, this is an interesting thought, I think, is so if someone has a BMI of 27 and they really want to lose more weight and they're in your office crying because they just feel terrible that they can't lose the extra 10 pounds or whatever. And I know your answer to that would be they have a problem with a relationship with food, which I agree. And
the relationship with themselves.
And the body image issues. And so those are valid and they need to be addressed. However, those aren't simple answers either. Mm-hmm. Like someone who is depressed, if you said, well, I guess you better just have a better perspective on life, you don't get a medication for that. I think we would never do that. And so I just think that just shows kind of some of the nuance of just to say to someone who has a BMI of 27 and wants a weight loss medication to say, no, that's ridiculous. You do not deserve that. Like, I don't think that's fair either.
Makes sense. It is such a gray area because it's
very gray.
Because again, so much people's self-worth and identity is in vanity and health, or in vanity, and like, don't kid yourself. I deal with that all the time. Like everyone does, and trying to unpack. All right, am I doing this because like having abs is kind of nice? It's kind of fun, but it kind of sucks at the same time.
But the work to get them,
and how restrictive. Some people, because they don't have the hunger cues, can hold abs pretty easy because they can control calories better. Other people, the sheer discipline and rigidity they have to go through, abs is not about health. It's about vanity. And so you have to unpack that and go, okay, why am I doing this? And breaking down that, am I doing this because it actually matters for my health, or am I doing this because my own vanity comes into play? And where does the ethics of a doctor and that whole bit come in? It's
sure. And I mean, we do things for vanity in medicine all the time. So have you ever heard of plastic surgery?
No.
Yeah. And then
I had the two surgeries that every girl wants, the boob job and a butt lift. So
wow, you must be very vain. And let's see, like medications like Accutane for acne. You could argue that's just a vanity thing. Like, no one's going to die of acne, but yet we spend money, healthcare dollars, on a medication to treat it. And so it's like, so there's more to it than just vanity. I think that plays a role, but you do have to think that there's more components to it.
Actually kind of crazy, because up until you said that, I was like on the opposite side. But when you brought up Accutane and acne, I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah, no one questions that.
No. And okay. Personally, I used Accutane in the past, and you could be like, wow, you were just super vain about your face. But it's also like, it's psychological when you have bad acne, right? Because I always was like, people were just staring at my face and thinking, what is wrong with her? I actually had a old lady, when I was going into the YMCA one day, turn to me and say, what's wrong with your face? That's literally what she said to me. And what was wrong with my face is I had bad acne. And so, like, that's where it's not just about vanity. Like, people need to get rid of their acne because it is affecting their emotional state, their psychological state, and weight does that too. So An interesting comparison.
Interesting. Okay. So a couple other ones on here that I want to kind of go on to. I mean, we've kind of hit it pretty hard, but it's like the shame, judgment, community backlash about GLP-1s and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean,
I just don't get it.
It's weird because it's like, obviously there are plenty of people who, say from my lens, have lost hundreds of pounds, no drugs, no surgery. They hold that like this kind of badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the conversation I had with Jim earlier today. Survivorship bias, where since I did it without drugs and surgery, everyone can do it without drugs and surgery. Like, that's called survivorship bias. Just because you did it doesn't mean that's actually one of the variables that controlled the outcome. I've dealt with this on social media all the time because even though I have never done those things, I'm an absolute supporter of them in the right circumstances with the right other checks and balances because they work and they're helpful. Now, it doesn't take away from the importance of prioritizing protein and whole foods and having a strength training routine and having a good relationship with food and all the other nuance. But by itself, it helps tens of thousands and clinically proven hundreds of thousands of people at this point. Crazy enough, people, there are TV shows around shaming people into losing hundreds of pounds, and they were all over TV for years, and obesity kept getting worse. For the first time in 30 years, obesity rates have dropped in America. And anecdotal, like we don't have the data behind it yet. I would argue it's probably going to be GLP-1s and surgery.
Oh, I'm sure that's going to play a role.
I'm sure, like, once we actually find that, when we break it down, but just so we're clear for everybody's sake, the first time in American history, obesity rates is actually going down in like 40 years.
That is super exciting.
And so we did the shame route in all the 90s, 80s, early 2000s. Now we're doing medical intervention at a higher level, and look what's happening. Just saying. It's just annoying. Like, because I get people in my DMs all the time when I support it, and then they DM me and go, well, I did it without surgery, and this is just my opinion. And it's really weird to me that, like, people use "this is my opinion" as a badge of honor that says, like, you can't be criticized for your opinion. Like, oh my gosh. Like, they just literally go, well, David, this is my opinion. And I'm going, it's a bad one. I don't get why just hiding behind, like, I unpack their claim and I kind of break it down, and then their only response is, well, David, this is my opinion. Is that supposed to somehow, like, make your argument better?
People think you can't criticize an opinion.
It's just, I'm like, it's a bad opinion.
Well, that's the thing. I think, like, it's like people think there's only one way to do something, but people are incredibly diverse. And I think the more I work in medicine, the more I see that people are all so completely different. And so there has to be different strategies for each person to get the result that we want. And I think that's what it, like, you can't look at someone, I hear this all the time from patients, like, well, my friend said I should do this, or, you know, so-and-so did this and they were successful. Well, that's great, but that person is completely different than you. They're probably a different age. They're probably, they have a different exercise routine. Their eating habits are completely different. Their sleep habits are completely different. Like, you can't compare yourself to that other person and what they did, because what they did may not work for you. You have to figure out what works for you. So focus on yourself.
All right, as we pivot into another big talking point on GLP-1s, Ozempic, all this kind of stuff.
Not Ozempic.
Compound pharmacies.
Oh, yes. Well, I think
What's your personal take? Like, break it down. What is a compound pharmacy in this whole world, and why is it even relevant?
Compounded pharmacies have been around a long time, and what their purpose is, at least, okay, so I'm not a pharmacist, but I have talked to pharmacists about this, and compounded pharmacies and compounding of medications is done for people who have specific needs to get a medication, but they can't take, like, that form. So, like, someone who has an allergy to something, or someone who can't swallow pills and needs a liquid. Like, that is what compounded pharmacies are for, is to be able to change the form of the medication so someone can have it. And I don't know, the details of how this happened then with GLP-1s initially, but they were
context.
Is it the that they were in shortage?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
So basically, because there was this huge uptick and the actual pharmaceutical companies couldn't keep up with demand, if the FDA has a set point that if the manufacturer, the company that owns the rights to it can't keep up, compound pharmacies can lower the stress of the burden to make up for it, but only until it's no longer considered scarce. And then technically, there's the compound pharmacies, as soon as the FDA says, hey, they can keep up, they're supposed to stop.
Yeah. Well, they're supposed to stop making them.
Yeah.
But I don't know, but I've heard that if they already made them, they can still sell them. So that's why they're still out. Because the FDA did stop, or the shortages are done for both tirzepatide and semaglutide. So you shouldn't be able to make any more of the compounded forms. And the reason the compounded forms have become such a hot topic is because the compounded forms are not using, they're not FDA approved. So the brand names are FDA approved. That's what the research was done on. But the compounded medications, they don't have the FDA approval. They don't have the safety data. And so you could be taking something that's completely not the right thing to lose the weight, and we just don't know. So the safety is just not there. We don't know what the efficacy is there. And so it is not recommended that you take compounded medication.
Now, why is it, but I think it's super important to know, why are people leaning in this direction?
Because they're cheaper.
They're cheaper, and because insurance isn't covering this stuff now.
Yeah.
And I want to give my 2 cents because I think it's super important from like, I'm a business guy, I'm a numbers guy, I love the science, but like and I'm relatively conservative in nature, meaning like, hey, progress is important, but also you don't always change the status quo. And like there's times and place, like we push the status quo too far, bad things happen. If we don't push fast enough, bad things happen. They're both important. And so insurance, everyone wants everything now. Everything's fast paced. But insurance also is seeing the price tag on these freaking drugs, and they're going, we can't afford this. Like, so they're having to pause on the use of them and paying for them because they're friggin' expensive, and they're on them consistently. And so it's a tough one. I understand insurance's angle. And so like seeing that point of like, they can't just keep writing these checks for these GLP-1, all these drugs, because they can't afford it. I'm also intrigued on between the compound pharmacy world, because the compound pharmacy world is showing that, again, big pharma in general, yes, they love making a lot of profit. They also do great things, but they love making a lot of profit. And it is crazy to me how these compound pharmacies are coming in and still making money. It could be that they're making a nonsense product. It could be just a bad product. Like that's
the compound pharmacies. Yeah.
They're making a placebo. That's potential. Or that pharmaceutical companies are charging ridiculous retails for the justification of R&D and marketing and blah, blah, blah. And they're profiting massive off this drug. And now they're seeing like the compound pharmacies are able to do it at 1/15 of the price. I'm super intrigued on like what the government does. Like, where is this line going to be? Are they going to step in and go, no? Just like insulin, for example. Government came with insulin, was like, no, this is a life-saving thing. You are like, you obviously have to make money. I get you, but here's your number. We know your numbers. So no, you will not be allowed to charge more than this, because people don't get insulin, they die. So like, no, you're not doing that. We're going to make sure you don't lose money. And I'm super intrigued with if they're going to do it with GLP-1s and like that whole, and like weight loss meds as these become more and more prevalent.
Well, because they're no longer in the shortage and we're not supposed to be making any more compounded. I wonder if this is just going to be kind of slowly fade away. I don't know, because technically there shouldn't be more coming.
No, but I just think because, again, capitalism, at the end of the day, the contrary to popular belief, you make something illegal and a black market just forms.
Find a way to do it.
Like,
well, that's true.
you go to these like communistic countries, and they control how much milk the average person can have. They just make a black market for milk. Like, I don't get how people think that you can just make things. Like, it's always funny to me. But so the same thing with the compounded pharmacy versus the pharmaceutical, and where that line's going to be. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of from one lens, I love the fact that the compound pharmacy is really opening the curtain, going, yo, we're making money and making if they're making good product, which we don't know that 100%, we're making money while not screwing people in like spending. Because what is the retail price of like the
medications? So right now, you can get Wegovy for $4.99 a month.
For single dose, for low dose.
So you can for all the doses.
For all the doses.
Yeah, it's right now that's where we're at. And then the Zepbound you can get for $4.99, but it's only the vial form. The medications come in these really nice pens that like you don't have to like do anything and you don't see a needle, but the vials you have to draw up with a needle, and so you can get that form from that company, the Zepbound, for $4.99 as well. But $4.99 a month is not feasible for the vast majority of people.
And then these compound pharmacies are coming in and doing it for like $69, $140.
It depends on the pharmacy.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen the price decrease on the brand names. Like we're seeing some improvement, at least that's what I'm seeing. But they're still ridiculously expensive for most people.
Yeah. Now, mind you, I'm also this from a social media influencer lens. It's a tough situation. Like, there's a lot of people right now from the compound pharmacy world because it's really weird. Guys, it's illegal to make profit on pharmaceutical medications. Like you can't make like wholesale retail markup profit. So like a doctor can't get insulin for 60, sell it for 100,
right.
like they do with supplements and all this kind of stuff. And you can't do direct price point kickbacks, but for some reason, because compound pharmacy is in this like weird gray area, there's a lot of social media influencers that are basically like getting deals with these compound pharmacies to like say how they're on the drug, and then they're like creating a landing page and basically making money for every person they get on the and I'm like,
that's just gross.
I don't like that. I
never see that, but you tell me you see it.
Conflict of interest. It's out there, and I don't like it. It's just a really. Yeah, it's because again,
if you people think pharmaceutical companies are bad, like, come on, that's not.
Well, it's like the conflict of interest between pharmaceuticals and all this kind of stuff. I get it. If doctors were getting kickbacks, financial kickbacks for prescribing medications, we've had this discussion on certain people that like, because guys, there's literally a website that you can look up exactly how much money every single pharmaceutical or medical supply company has given in anything, whether they did a paid speaking gig, they were given a bagel. It's all because of this exact concern of conflict of interest. They've made this entire legal like nightmare. Back in the day, Dad, cardiology, back in the day, it wasn't as restrictive, and the 3Ds, there was the doctors, drugs, and PharmDs, and they would go on these summer golf trips, and the pharmaceutical companies and the farm reps would pay for it, and they do like 3-day golf trips where basically the pharmaceutical reps paid for all the food, all the booze. It was a lot. It was a relatively lot amount of money. So I understand that argument.
I came into medicine too late. I have never experienced any of that.
There was a lot of schmoozing in the 90s, but like that's all gone. It doesn't. It's like there was art, and that's understandably so. They made the laws.
I mean, it probably still exists in certain specialties, but I don't know. But yeah, it isn't in the vast majority.
But it's still public knowledge, so you can go up online, and if someone is getting paid $100,000 to do a speaking engagement on some product. It has to be disclosed, and you can look this all up. And it's so funny how we've created this extreme, rigid control over doctors, but this whole world, supplements, you don't have a conflict of interest. Just so we're clear, everyone that goes on the internet saying doctors are making a bunch of money on pharmaceuticals are selling you a supplement that actually they make money on. Like, oh my gosh, take my vitamin D3, take this milk thistle. And it's like, they're actually making profit on trying to make you scared out of doctors because they say they're making conflict of interest while actually making money.
And meds have research behind them. And supplements, many of them do not.
Nonsense. I got friends that constantly, we go back and forth on this, and they've been hooked on like the marketing that they believe this is true, and it's not true. And it's like they're the same people that are selling supplements. But yeah, that's gonna.
Okay, another random question.
Yep.
What for you does food noise mean?
Food noise. It's a great question. So, a couple different ways to unpack it. Number one, from just a hunger standpoint, like you've witnessed it, I can eat a 16-ounce steak, a large baked potato, and a large salad that normally would take somebody being, first off, they probably couldn't eat it all. I can eat it all in 20 minutes. And literally, I'm not kidding you, 15 minutes later, I'm already in my head going, protein bar?
Now, is that, or do you feel hungry, or is it just you're just thinking about the food?
It's both. There isn't this, like, everyone, don't kid yourself. Thanksgiving, like that, like uncomfortable feeling of fullness I can get. It's an obnoxious amount of food more than most, but it takes that, where like that satiety and that feeling of like actual, I'm full, is a ridiculous amount of food for me if I really want to play that card. Or it's on a scale of 1 to 10, I have a fullness of 3 when most people have a fullness of 8. Like, and it's eating the same foods. This is where it's super important when we break this down from a weight loss surgery and medication standpoint, obviously in this being Ozempic and drugs like this. Like, you still got to set the cards in your favor. If you're eating foods, if you're eating chips and cookies and regular soda all day, you're not even putting yourself in a position to feel full. Like this is where people say it. Like your big food, your Doritos, you can eat a family-sized bag that's like 3,000 calories.
You don't feel it at all.
And you don't feel it at all. Like, so again, you got to set the game to at least attempt to win.
Yes.
Most people, like, again, sadly, they go on these drugs and they just still eat Doritos because they don't feel full or they don't feel hungry. So it's like, that's not good either. But, so that's number one, is like that feeling of actual satiation is just more numb to me. And I don't know, like, I've tried to stay as conscious as possible, like reflecting. Like, we had this conversation on a walk not too long ago, because I make the comment that I'm just more hungry than most. And I think it's super important that from a different lens, people say it's like food addiction. And I loathe that statement, because the term addiction is, by definition, it means it has power over you. And food does not have to have power over you. But I'm also a realist, going, 8 billion people, I can definitely see that I eat more than most. And I've worked on, like, is this coming from a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm just saying, well, I'm addicted to sugar, so I'm going to be addicted to sugar. And it's like, that's the self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, or is it actually like somewhat science-based, not just not just your own.
And because I think I asked you this too, like, there is evidence in science that people that have lost a significant amount of weight have higher hunger hormones or changes in their hormones that just make it more difficult for them to keep weight off.
Yep. And that's where the two angles there, it's like, I've done my best to try to make sure that I'm not just confirmation bias, like, oh, well, this is the way it is. Like, for example, I did have a period of time where I used the term, I was addicted to food. And I had someone, a mentor of mine, say, you realize what you're doing there. And I'm like, you're right. So I changed my term from addicted to food to saying I had an obsession with food. I use food to, like, I got more granular with it. I was like, I use food to cope with stress. I use food for all the emotional side. And guess what? When I changed that verbiage, personally, this is my own case study, it helped me with hunger. It helped me with my obsession of food. Was it perfect? No, but I definitely saw a lower binge feeling in my head. But then again, it's like, where's that between hard science and like foo-foo, sunshine and rainbows? It's a really gray area. And so
hunger is complex.
Hunger is complex because there's emotional hunger too.
Mhm.
There's, again, we use food for different reasons. And a lot of people use food to cope. And so that feeling they get from there, and they find that when you work through those struggles, the hunger cues go away. So it's a gray area, but for me personally, it's number one, I never have, unless I actually what's like a binge. Like I eat 2 large pizzas. If I eat 2 large pizzas, I definitely get the
Well,
but
good.
it takes like 2 large pizzas. Or even, again, Whole Foods. A 16-ounce steak, a large baked potato, and a salad, and I'm like at a 6. Where most people would be like, I couldn't even eat it, let alone eat all of it. And so, yeah, that's kind of the nuance there. And that constant in the back of the head of like, what's the next meal? There's enough hunger here that, like, let's just think about.
You can have another protein bar.
Protein bar, apple.
Protein bar.
Apple, protein.
Quest chips.
Quest chips. As long as there's protein and it hits my calories. She's making me eat more fruits and vegetables, guys.
Well, that's what you tell all of your followers to do. So I don't know why this is why is this hard?
I made asparagus last night with my chicken.
I'm proud of you. That's amazing.
Too funny.
All right, anything else you want to talk about?
I guess the real takeaway. So as we're kind of refining this up, and how do we unpack this whole conversation? So, is Ozempic a miracle or a crutch?
It's neither.
And what does the evidence say? In the most tangible way?
Yeah, I would say that these medications, the weight loss medications, they're not a miracle and they're not a crutch. They're a tool. Just like we have tools for lots of other problems. It's one thing that can help you towards your goal. It's not the only thing, and there are other things you need to do with it, but it is a tool that can help many people with weight loss, which leads to better health outcomes.
And obviously, we're not a huge fan of compound pharmacies. So, like, going to your doctor, what questions, what do you want from that? Because you got 7 minutes. Listen up. These are the questions I have.
You can just ask them, do you think this is a good idea for me? I'm interested in it. Like, just tell them if you are, and then ask them why or why not, if they do or don't recommend it. And just realize you may have to pay a lot of money to get it, because though some insurances apparently do cover them, I haven't seen great success with most of my patients, at least currently. But it changes all the time. So, and it depends on your insurance plan. And your doctor does not know your insurance plan. So your doctor cannot tell you if it's covered, most likely. So that takes some diligence for you as a patient. Take some ownership over that and call your insurance company if you want to know.
I love it. Well, it was an incredible first episode. I think it was a solid. I think we got a good flow there, and hopefully you guys got great value of this. If you have someone that's been questioning about Ozempic or these drugs, I love it how I keep saying it. It's so funny. If you thought this was great, share it to friends and family that have these questions as well. If you have any more detailed questions, you're obviously welcome to DM Lara or myself on it.
And remember that none of this is medical advice, so please seek the advice of your own physician.
100%, because, guys, crazy enough, doctors have way more restrictions than the average person that's not a doctor. Just so we're clear, the amount of loops they have to go through.
They work hard.
Much.
A lot of them work hard for you. I know you might not know it or think it, but they do.
100%. All right.
Good work.
Good first episode.
I like it.
Toodles.
All right. Signing off.